let's get back to First Timothy, because the other big passage is First Timothy chapter 2, and this is when pastors and preachers want to silence women. I mean, probably one of their favorite ones is First Timothy chapter 2, where Paul says, "I did not permit a woman to teach," and all that. By the way, I cover this in my book, Jesus Unbound, so I'm going to give you a plug. I have a whole chapter where I deal with this, those two passages. But here's the real simple thing. I'm going to try and just very, very simply explain something I think that people really miss when it comes to this First Timothy passage. Is that, and here's the thing, all the clues are right there in the Bible for you. So at the very beginning of First Timothy, right, Paul is writing a letter to Timothy, and he tells Timothy to remain in Ephesus. Okay, now do a word study in your concordance and look at what else you know about the city of Ephesus, and you'll see the reference in the book of Acts to when Paul was in Ephesus, and he did some things that people there didn't like. They kind of threatened Artemis worship. Because, by the way, in Ephesus was this massive temple to Artemis or Diana. What you read in the book of Acts is they got so pissed off, they chanted for over an hour, "Great is Artemis of the Ephesians." So people in Ephesus were crazy about Artemis, okay? Artemis worship was huge. Now, you need to know that. If you understand that Artemis worship was huge in Ephesus, and keep that in your mind when you read First Timothy, a lot of things will come to make sense, a whole lot of sense. For example, Artemis was a female-driven cult. They had women priests where women were in charge. The Artemis religion also taught that women were created first, not men, which is the reason why Paul emphasizes in 1 Timothy that man was created first and not women, because, again, he's trying to correct the Artemis teaching. He makes a reference to a person who is a problem in that church. There's a specific person who's a problem in the church, and then immediately starts talking about a woman. Not all women everywhere, a woman, a particular woman that he and Timothy, they know who they're talking about. The other thing you need to know about Artemis worship is that the way women would worship Artemis would be to adorn and braid their hair. Maybe that's why Paul in 1 Timothy says that he wants the women in the church there in Ephesus to dress modestly and not to braid their hair. It's not that he cares about women braiding their hair. He wouldn't have said that to other churches and other people in other places. He's just trying to say to Timothy, hey, tell the women not to make an appearance as if, and maybe they really were secretly, that they're worshiping Artemis. Now, here's the other thing you need to know about Artemis worship. The reason a woman would braid her hair like that, if she was wanting to appeal to Diana or to Artemis, was simply this: so that when she got pregnant, she and her child would be saved in childbirth. Now, that makes sense of one of the most confusing passages in the entire Bible in 1 Timothy, because in 1 Timothy, Paul says that women will be saved in childbirth if they continue to trust in the Lord. Do you understand why he's saying that now, if you understand Artemis worship and how it works? And what all he's trying to tell Timothy is to encourage the women there that if they trust in the Lord, that God will protect them and their child in childbirth, and they don't have to appeal to Artemis. So again, if you understand all of this background information, all this cultural information that, frankly, we don't really have, and yes, you're going to have to do a little bit of study to find out, but then it unlocks this whole passage, and you realize that Paul isn't trying to say, I don't permit women anywhere to teach anyone. Also, the other problem is we have this crazy idea, probably from this passage, that if someone teaches you, they are an authority over you. That is not the case. When someone teaches you, they're not in authority over you. But we have this crazy idea that if someone's a teacher, quote unquote, pastor in a church, you better shut up and listen to them because they have the power and they have the authority. But Paul didn't believe that. Paul told everyone in the body of Christ to submit to one another. We all submit to one another, not to the teacher. And the teacher, if he teaches you something, isn't in authority over you. Now, Paul does say in Timothy, I don't permit a woman to teach for the purpose of having authority over a man. But I promise you, Paul wouldn't allow a man to teach in a church for the purpose of having authority over a man either. Like, he doesn't want anyone to have that authority. We all submit to Christ, and we all submit to one another. So anyway, that's my take on 1 Timothy.
No, I think that's really